Что же? Вы что сказали?
Мы просто начинаем спокойненько.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. We are here today to speak out following some regrettable developments in the work of the Security Council. Despite the clearly terrorist nature of the recent attacks against passenger trains in the Bryansk, Kursk and Voronezh regions of the Russian Federation on May 31st, June 1st and June 5th, which resulted in the deaths of 7 civilians and left over 100 injured, some well-known delegations, whom I will not mention by name, refused to engage constructively with our draft resolution in condemning these acts of terrorism. Let me be clear, our draft was based entirely on previously agreed Security Council language, including Resolution 1373, and firmly grounded in international law, including the UN Charter and the 1999 International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism. It sought to reaffirm the very basic principle of the Council's approach in this domain, namely that terrorism is criminal and unjustifiable regardless of motivation. We felt it important for the Council to send a strong signal demonstrating unity among its members and serving as a deterrent. Unfortunately, that was not the case. From the very beginning, these delegations resorted to politicization and artificial linkage of these terrorist attacks to the broader context of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, as if that could somehow excuse or alter the terrorist nature of these acts. Any justification of terrorism is unacceptable. It's a slippery road that can bring terrorism to anyone's home. In another episode, the same delegations do not hesitate to call by name the perpetrators of the attacks. In search of consensus, we ceased pursuing a resolution and proposed a very minimal alternative instead, a standard press statement, identical to those the Council has issued countless times before in response to various terrorist acts around the globe. However, even that was blocked. Even the most basic expression of condemnation, solidarity with the victims, and reaffirmation of counterterrorism principles. Some of them doubted aloud whether bombing of a passenger train can be considered a terrorist act, alleging that it could be, and then I practically quote, a valid military target under international humanitarian law in the situation of an armed conflict. Such an approach is not only unsubstantiated, inhumane, and cynical, but also does not meet appropriate legal criteria. When passenger trains on the Russian territory are blown up with a clear intent to target civilians and spread terror, we are told that this heinous crime cannot be called by a proper name, an act of terrorism. Such a selective approach gravely undermines the cooperation within the Council on counterterrorism and the universality of its relevant framework. The Russian Federation has always called for the principled, depoliticized approach to counterterrorism. We expected the same from the others. Unfortunately, in this case, we have witnessed a refusal to uphold core principles simply because the victims were Russians. Another issue, the condemnation of terrorism does not exhaust the list of topics on which some members of the Council are unable to engage constructively. To our disappointment, our proposal to adopt a statement of the President of the Security Council in order to welcome and encourage interaction between Russia and Ukraine on reunification of Ukrainian children who may have lost contact with their families was also blocked. Last week, the Russian Federation proposed a draft statement reflecting the fact that at the direct bilateral talks between the representatives of Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul on June the 2nd, upon the request of the Russian side to provide the full list of children who lost contact with their families in Ukraine, the latter handed over the list of 339 names. We also proposed that the Council welcomed this fact and urged cooperation between Russia and Ukraine on this issue as a part of the peace process. However, certain members of the Council who for many years falsely claimed that tens of thousands of Ukrainian children were abducted by Russia refused to acknowledge the reality. It came as no surprise that these members, who have been actively involved in the disinformation campaign for and by the Kyiv regime since the very start of the special military operation, this new development turned out to be extremely inconvenient. Instead of welcoming the readiness of the parties to work together in good faith, some of the Security Council members chose to condition the adoption of the presidential statement to inclusion of a number of politically motivated provisions. The reality is that the Russian Federation was never engaged in illegal deportation of Ukrainian children, but it has evacuated a number of children from the battle areas for the sake of their own safety. Some of them lost contact with their relatives. We have constantly worked to re-establish it and will continue to do so. But I will repeat, we are talking about 339 names of the children, not tens of thousands as is falsely claimed. Now the Ukrainian list is already under conscientious scrutiny by our relevant authorities, who are ready to keep working tirelessly to restore family ties. With this in mind, we cannot but regret the missed opportunity for the Council to finally engage in a meaningful way in the resolution of the Ukrainian crisis. I thank you.